You don't belong in first class, Nicole snapped, ripping a perfectly valid boarding pass straight down the middle like it was trash. Her eyes locked on a man dressed in a plain black t-shirt and jeans, unaware that in less than 30 minutes he would fire her in front of a full cabin of stunned passengers, flight staff, and social media cameras already rolling. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was a collapse of everything. Horizon Airlines tried to hide, and that man, he wasn't just any passenger. He was Marcus Carter, CEO, billionaire, and 25% owner of the airline she just humiliated. Before we get into what happened on June 20th inside Gate B14, if you want the full breakdown of Injustice Redemption and a moment that changed U.S. aviation history, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment below where you're watching from. What would you have done in Marcus's shoes? Let's get into it. The flight was scheduled to leave Chicago for Los Angeles at exactly 6:23 p.m. Central Time. Pre-boarding had just started. The first-class cabin was quiet, plush, cool. All that typical premium comfort stuff you see in ads. That's when Marcus walked on. Calm, collected, unnoticed, exactly how he planned it. See, Marcus Carter wasn't just traveling to LA. He was investigating his own airline. A string of online reviews had piled up, mostly ignored by PR, about how Horizon staff treated passengers based on their looks. Not race outright, but appearance, clothing vibes, you know the type. So Marcus dressed down. No Rolex, no suit, no entourage, just jeans, sneakers, and a black tee. First class seat, 2A, his paid in full. Booked under his real name. No favors. But when he approached his seat, Nicole Harris, 35, flight attendant from Ohio, looked him up and down like he was lost. "Sir, I think you're in the wrong cabin," she said flatly. Marcus showed his boarding pass. Nicole didn't even glance at it. "That seat's been reassigned." "Duh," she added, already motioning toward the economy section. Brian Foster, another flight attendant, younger smug from Texas, walked up and chuckled. "Yeah, man. You sure you're in the right place? Looks like economy is more your style." Marcus raised an eyebrow, but kept his cool. "This says 2A first class." He handed over both his boarding pass and his ID, a clean Illinois driver's license. Nicole barely looked at it. "This has to be fake. We've seen this before, just last month in Dallas," she scoffed, referring to a 2020 incident where another black passenger was told the same thing. Captain Daniel Pierce, tall, stern Midwestern, walked down from the cockpit, summoned by Nicole. "Sir, if you don't comply, we'll have to remove you. We have VIP guests who need that seat," he said, already motioning behind him. That's when Richard and Laura Bennett, a wealthy white couple, stepped forward. Holding champagne flutes and flashing platinum medallion tags, Richard said, "Is this going to be a problem?" Nicole replied, "We're handling it." The Bennett smiled, the seat reassignment clearly arranged ahead of time. Marcus stayed seated, calm but firm. "I'm not moving." That's when Linda Walsh, the security officer on site, mid-30s, born and raised in Illinois, stepped in, hand on her utility belt. "Sir, I'm giving you one warning. Either vacate the seat or you'll be escorted off." A few rows back, Mia Lang, a 22-year-old trainee flight attendant on her first solo assignment, looked stunned. She stepped up hesitantly. Actually, I think his ticket's real. I saw it. Scan green," Nicole snapped. "Stay out of this, Mia." Mia stepped back, but not before tapping her phone's audio recorder and slipping it into her jacket pocket. In row 4, two passengers, white clearly watching everything, looked horrified. Emma Larson, 38, from Minnesota, pulled out her phone and hit record. "This is discrimination," she muttered. Her seatmate, Michael Grant, 42, from Florida, nodded. "This is going to blow up, watch." He started filming, too. Nicole, now visibly irritated, grabbed Marcus's boarding pass and tore it down the middle. "You're going to economy, or you're off." Marcus blinked. "Excuse me." She turned to Linda. "Get him out." Marcus pulled out his platinum business card, a thick, matte black slab with his full name engraved. Nicole laughed. "You people carry fake cards now?" she asked, loud enough for others to hear. Captain Daniel frowned. "You've been warned." Marcus, still composed, pulled out his phone and called Rachel Harris, his executive assistant. "Rachel, log this, contact the board. Tell them we're about to have a situation." On the other end, Rachel answered instantly. "Already on it. Sending alerts now." Meanwhile, the Bennett stepped into seat 2A, like royalty, sitting down where Marcus should have been, brushing him off, as if he were invisible. Emma shook her head. "This is so wrong." She uploaded her video to X and TikTok with the Horizon shock. Within seconds, views ticked upward. Michael followed, posting from a different angle. "This is disgusting," he said on camera. Back in the galley, Mia overheard Nicole and Brian whispering, "Dude really thought he was flying first class." Brian laughed. "He probably printed that boarding pass at home," Nicole added. "Not in those jeans, honey." Mia pressed record on her voice memo app again. She looked sick to her stomach. Back in the cabin, Daniel walked up again. "Last warning." Marcus stood, not to leave, to face them. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You have no idea who I am." Nicole rolled her eyes. "You're nobody. Economy's that way." Emma stood up. "He's got a valid ticket. I saw it." Michael joined her. "You can't just take someone's seat because of what they look like." "Passengers," murmured. Linda stepped forward. "Sir, move now." Marcus didn't budge. He looked straight at Daniel. "You're going to regret this," Daniel scoffed. Threat noted from the galley. Mia reappeared, cheeks flushed. "Captain, I really think you need to listen." "He belongs here," Daniel waved her off. "Trainees, don't speak during escalation." Nicole, still fuming, smirked. "See? Even your own staff knows you're lying." Emma raised her phone again. "The internet's watching," she said. Her voice cut the air from the back. Someone whispered, "Is this that guy, the billionaire guy?" Another murmured, "What billionaire?" But before the rumors could spread, Nicole returned to her iPad and typed something fast. She opened the seating log and deleted Marcus's name. "There," she muttered to Brian. "No record of Carter ever booking 2A. Brian chuckled. "Problem solved." Mia overheard it all. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Marcus sat back down, not in defeat, but in defiance. "You're ruining this company," he said. Nicole scoffed. "It's not your company." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Want to bet?" The camera panned back to Emma, who whispered into her phone's mic. "Something's about to go down." Daniel's voice turned sharp, cutting through the cabin like static on a bad radio. "Sir, this is your final notice. Leave first class or be removed." Marcus didn't flinch. He stayed in his seat, calm but unshakable, like someone who had seen this game played 100 times. Nicole, standing to the side, arms crossed and lip curled, muttered to Brian, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "He's a scammer, just like that guy in Atlanta last year who said he had a ticket." Brian chuckled and added, "Yeah, I've had enough of people trying to dress it up and sneak into seats they didn't pay for. Policy is policy. That word, policy, hung heavy in the air like a loaded weapon. Marcus looked around the cabin. The Bennett now comfortably sipping wine in seat 2A. His seat, as if they hadn't just been part of a silent theft. Then came Linda again, the security officer, stepping forward with slow, practiced authority. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," she warned. "You don't want to end up on a no-fly list over this." Mia Lang, still near the galley, looked over with wide eyes. But his scan was green, she repeated as if that should matter. But it didn't. Not to Nicole, not to Brian, and clearly not to Captain Daniel Pierce. Marcus exhaled and muttered, "So, this is how you do people who don't fit your image of first class." He pulled out his phone again, speaking just loud enough. "Rachel, send the audio to James, Sarah, and David. Tell them it's time." On the other end, Rachel Harris, crisp and focused, replied, "Already done, the board's aware." Nicole overheard and rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, recording us for what, YouTube?" Brian laughed under his breath. "Maybe he'll go viral before we toss him nearby." Emma Larson stood halfway up in her seat, filming again. "This is wrong. The man hasn't raised his voice once. Why are you treating him like a threat?" Michael Grant nodded, holding his phone. "Exactly. Y'all keep saying policy, but won't even look at his ID." Daniel turned toward the passengers, eyes narrowing. "This passenger is interfering with pre-flight protocols. He's refusing staff instructions. We're following FAA guidelines." That phrase, FAA guidelines, made a few other passengers sit back down, unsure what to believe. But Emma wasn't having it. "He showed you everything. You tore up his ticket and lied about the system." Nicole snapped back. "There is no record of a Marcus Carter in seat 2A in the galley." Mia's fingers trembled around her phone. She had just recorded Nicole and Brian mocking Marcus again. This time saying, "Dude probably borrowed those jeans from Goodwill." And now she watched as the seating log on Nicole's tablet showed a suspicious blank spot where Marcus's name had once been. The log was altered. She saw it with her own eyes. This wasn't just a mistake. It was targeted, and it was ugly. Then the cabin turned quiet for a moment, that kind of uneasy quiet, before something shifts. One row back, a teenager whispered to his mom, "He's not doing anything wrong." The mom nodded quietly, pulling out her phone too. Meanwhile, Marcus leaned back and thought about 20 years earlier, when he was just 25, fresh out of grad school applying for a job at a regional airline. He showed up in slacks and a button-down. "Still got rejected," the manager said, "not the image we're looking for." That phrase stuck with him for decades, and here it was again. Different faces, same energy. Not the image. That rejection became fuel. Fuel for every deal, every late night, every stake he'd built until he held 25% of Horizon Airlines. And now, he was here being treated like trash on a plane he partially owned. Rachel's voice came through again, calm and razor sharp. "James is standing by." Sarah's reviewing the seating log. "David is pulling all incident reports from this month," Marcus replied. "Tell them Mia has audio." Mia looked up at the mention of her name. She stepped forward slowly. "Captain, I recorded what Nicole and Brian said. I think the board should hear it." Daniel turned red. "That's a violation of crew protocol." Mia didn't back down. "So is what they did?" Nicole laughed, clearly, shaken, but still snide. "Oh, please. No one's going to believe a trainee. You don't even have wings yet." Emma raised her phone again. "I do. I believe her," Michael added. "Same here." Then someone from the back yelled, "Us too." Momentum shifted. It wasn't just Marcus anymore. It was everyone. Daniel raised his voice. "This situation is escalating because of one non-compliant passenger." Linda stepped forward again, her stance more aggressive now. Sir, this is your final warning. You'll be removed. Marcus didn't move. He locked eyes with Linda. I suggest you wait about 5 more minutes, she frowned. Why? Marcus's voice dropped low. Because by then you'll be getting a call from someone who signs your paychecks. Emma looked at Michael, then back at Marcus. Who are you? Marcus didn't answer yet. Not yet. Not until it mattered. Linda's hand twitched at her radio, but before she called it in, Mia stepped fully into the aisle. This is wrong, she said, voice shaking but firm. His ticket scanned green. I watched it. I double-checked. Nicole rolled her eyes again. He's probably scamming the whole system. You think we don't get fake tickets every week? Marcus turned to Nicole slowly. You're talking to someone who's flown on this airline longer than you've worked here. Brian leaned against the galley wall, trying to stay cool. Then you should know the rules, Emma scoffed. He does know the rules better than you. Then Michael said it loud and clear. You're going to lose your jobs over this. That's when Nicole panicked, whispered to Brian. Do you think he's somebody? Brian glanced at Marcus's face, steady, unreadable. He looks familiar. Nicole's voice dropped. Carter? Wait, no, it can't be. Mia looked from Nicole to Marcus, then back. Her eyes widened. Rachel's voice came in again, this time firmer. They know who you are now. The board's ready. If they make one more move, give the signal. Marcus's lips curved into a calm, cutting smile. Let's give them that move then, just as Nicole raised her hand to wave Linda in. Again, Mia stepped forward with her. Phone raised. I have everything recorded, and I'll send it to the board if you try to remove him. Nicole froze. Brian stepped back. Daniel cursed under his breath. Emma's video just passed 5,000 views. Michael's wasn't far behind. The pressure was mounting. The cabin tense, Marcus stood slowly. Your bias ends here. The cabin, once silent, erupted in murmurs of agreement. Passengers began standing with him. And just like that, a quiet man in a black t-shirt wasn't alone anymore. Captain Daniel Pierce's voice cracked through the intercom like a final blow to dignity. Attention, passengers. Due to a disruption in first class, we are asking all guests to remain seated as we remove a non-compliant individual refusing staff instructions. The cabin fell into stunned silence. Marcus Carter didn't blink. He was still seated, still calm, staring ahead while the walls of injustice closed in. Nicole stood just behind Daniel, smirking like the announcement sealed it. Brian lingered by the galley, arms crossed, enjoying the show. That's it, Linda muttered, stepping forward, hand resting near her radio. We're doing this the hard way. She reached for Marcus's arm. Sir, stand up now. Marcus turned his head, slowly, voice low, but cutting. You put your hands on me, you'll answer to a boardroom, not a holding cell. She froze. Not because she believed him. Not yet, but because of the force in his tone across the aisle. Emma Larson's phone didn't stop recording. You see this, she said. They're really going to drag him out for having a legit ticket. Her video, posted under the tag Now Horizon Shock, had already hit 95,000 views and climbing. This is what racism looks like in 2025. Her caption read, 2 rows back. Michael Grant posted a clip from a different angle overlaying the words, this man showed ID. He showed his ticket. They just didn't like how he looked. His video crossed 100K just as Daniel finished his intercom message. Meanwhile, Mia Lang, the young trainee flight attendant who had been quietly recording from the galley, stepped into the aisle, her nerves visibly shaking, but her voice finding its spine. Captain, please, I have proof. He was scanned in his boarding pass. Was valid, I heard Nicole say. There was no record. After she deleted it herself, Nicole spun around, eyes wide. Excuse me. That's a lie. Mia didn't flinch. You said it. You and Brian were laughing about it in the galley. I recorded it. Daniel's face went pale. You recorded the crew. Mia nodded. Sure did. Nicole's smirk vanished. That's illegal, Michael yelled from his seat. So is tearing up someone's ticket and lying about it. Passengers started murmuring, some standing up to see better. The pressure shifted fast. What had started as one man being targeted was now a cabin full of witnesses. They're trying to erase a paying customer, someone muttered. This is insane. Nicole turned to Brian. Her voice suddenly panicked. We're losing control of the cabin. Brian muttered. This is on you. You wanted to push him out? Emma took a bold step forward, raising her phone high. Don't touch him. We're all watching, and we're not letting you drag him off this plane. Another passenger added. You do that, and you'll be on the news by midnight. The human tide formed fast, a soft blockade of standing passengers, holding phones, blocking Linda and Daniel from getting to Marcus. He remained in his seat, calm, phone still in hand. Rachel, he said, speaking into his AirPods, tell James, Sarah, and David the situation's escalated. They need to hear this. Rachel's voice came back sharp, unwavering. I've already looped in the board. They're in emergency session now. Legal is reviewing the audio and video. Marcus nodded slightly, his eyes meeting Linda's. If you remove me now, you remove your future with this airline. Daniel stepped in again, trying to assert authority. You can't speak to my team that way. I'm speaking to them, like someone who signs their payroll checks. Marcus said, his tone flat. Not raised, but something in the room shifted. Nicole blinked. Wait, what? Brian's face turned gray. You're joking. Linda hesitated, lowering her radio slightly. Marcus said nothing more. Not yet. Letting the weight of uncertainty hang in the air, like storm clouds from the galley, Mia hit play on her phone. The voice memo echoed in Nicole saying, not in those jeans. Brian laughing about fake tickets, and a short clip where Nicole muttered, delete it. Carter's name doesn't belong in first class anyway. Passengers gasped. Michael said loudly, That's it. That's all the proof you need, Emma added. They deleted his name from the system. This was planned. Nicole spun around, yelling. She edited that. She spliced it, but no one was listening to her anymore. Daniel's eyes darted between his crew and the crowd. Everyone sit down, he started. But the passengers weren't budging. You're not removing anyone, Michael said. We're staying right here. Linda looked at Daniel. Captain, this isn't going how it's supposed to. You think, he snapped back. The power they thought they had was slipping fast, and they knew it. Nicole was sweating now, visibly shaken. Okay, fine, she said, flustered. Maybe we misread the situation. Marcus finally stood up, not to leave, but to face them all. No, he said. You read it exactly how you wanted. You saw a black man in jeans, and you decided I didn't belong. You ripped up my ticket. You lied about my ID. You forged the log. You mocked me in the galley. All of it for optics. Nicole opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Then from the other side of the cabin, a passenger, older, quiet, until now, said, This feels familiar. This happened to my son. Different city. Same playbook. Murmurs rippled through the rows. Passengers weren't just reacting. They were remembering. I've seen this, someone said. Every time they claim policy, it's always the same. Mia took a breath, stepped beside Marcus. He's telling the truth. I back him 100%. Daniel raised his voice again. This crew is trained to follow FAA protocol and to profile people. Marcus cut in to target based on clothing skin. No response. Marcus nodded. Right. Then his phone buzzed. Rachel's voice came into his earpiece. "They're ready." He didn't say anything else. He looked at Nicole, then Brian, then Daniel. "You'll want to sit down. You're about to be very unemployed." Nicole stepped back. Wait, she whispered. Brian looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. Daniel tried to gather what was left of his authority. "This is a misunderstanding." Marcus stared him down. "You're going to wish it was Emma's phone buzzed. My video just hit 100. 1,000 views." Michael checked his, too. "Mine's at 130K. Comments are exploding. Everyone's calling this out." The Bennett who had been silent seated in 2A finally spoke. Richard cleared his throat. "We didn't ask for this." Marcus turned toward them. "But you didn't stop it either." Laura lowered her gaze. "We thought staff knew best." "Staff lied," Marcus replied. "And you benefited from it." The cabin was still. Now the crew had no control. Marcus had not yet revealed his identity, but he didn't need to. Not anymore. The power had already shifted. Captain Daniel's jaw clenched as he turned from the passengers to Nicole, Brian, and Linda. "Enough," he snapped, eyes wild, voice unsteady. "Remove him now." Nicole didn't hesitate. She stormed down the aisle with Brian on her left and Linda stepping forward, hand hovering close to Marcus's shoulder. "Sir, we're done playing games. You're coming with us," Linda ordered, her voice louder than before, trying to mask her rising discomfort with authority. Marcus didn't move. He simply looked down at his phone and tapped once. "Rachel," he said, calm as ever. "They're making their final move. Confirm board status." On the other end, Rachel's voice rang clear in his AirPods. "The board is live. All 3 members. James, Sarah, David are online. They've reviewed the logs, the footage, and the audio. They're ready." Marcus nodded once, then looked up, just as Linda reached for him. "Don't," he said, not loudly, but with a gravity that made her hesitate. "You're a single decision away from either saving your job or losing it forever." Linda blinked, her hand frozen in the air. Behind them, passengers were no longer just filming. They were speaking out, some standing, some forming a loose blockade between Marcus and the crew. "You're not taking him anywhere," Emma Larson declared. Her phone still raised. "You tore up his boarding pass. You mocked him, and now you want to throw him off the plane." Michael Grant stood beside her, adding, "That's not security, that's abuse." Someone in row 5 shouted, "He paid for that seat, I saw him check in." Another voice added, "This is happening way too often," Nicole shouted back. "Everyone stay seated or you'll be removed too." But no one sat. Instead, more passengers stood up, creating a wall of resistance, shoulder to shoulder, holding phones, muttering to each other, some in anger, some in disbelief. Linda's voice dropped into a whisper, leaning toward Daniel. "This doesn't feel right anymore," Daniel hissed. "Just follow orders." But she didn't move. Instead, her eyes shifted from Marcus to Mia, who was standing across the aisle holding her phone tightly against her chest, the screen glowing with the voice memo app still running. Mia stepped forward, her voice cracking at first, but gaining strength. "I heard Nicole and Brian in the galley. They joked about how Marcus didn't belong here, and said they'd make it look like a mix-up." Nicole wheeled around, red-faced. "You're a trainee. You don't know protocol." Mia shook her head. "I know right from wrong, and this is wrong." Daniel opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Emma yelled over him, "Shut it, Captain. We've all heard the audio. We've all seen how you treated him." Michael raised his phone higher. "My video just hit 2,000 views. The world's watching now. Horizon Shock is trending." Daniel's lips curled in frustration, realizing he was no longer in control of the narrative or the cabin. Then came the final crack in their armor. Rachel's voice came through Marcus's earpiece again, firm and decisive. James says, "It's time. Sarah and David are backing full executive authority. You are cleared to act." Marcus took a slow step forward, facing Nicole, Brian, Daniel, and Linda, the four who had spent the last 20 minutes unraveling the dignity of an innocent man based on his clothes, his skin, and their unchecked bias, but he didn't speak to them just yet. He turned first to the passengers. "Thank you," he said, "not just for filming, but for standing up, for not sitting back when it was easier to stay quiet." Then he looked to Mia. "You showed more integrity in one day than some do in their whole career." Mia nodded, tears quietly lining her eyes. Nicole took a step back, sensing the shift, trying to salvage control. "Look, maybe we misjudged." "You didn't misjudge," Marcus interrupted sharply. You chose. You chose to ignore my ID. You chose to tear up my boarding pass. You chose to erase my name from the log. You laughed about it, and now you're scrambling because the mask is off." Daniel tried to step in again. "Sir, we can escalate this to federal security." "You won't need to," Marcus said, finally, stepping fully into the aisle, "because I am Marcus Carter, CEO and 25% shareholder of Horizon Airlines. And as of this moment, the board is aware of every second of this incident." The air went completely still. Nicole's mouth dropped open. Brian stuttered, "You're lying." Marcus didn't flinch. "Rachel." Patching James on speaker. "A second." Later, a calm, authoritative male voice filled the cabin from Marcus's phone speaker. "This is James Thompson, Horizon board member. We've received full recordings from Marcus Carter and the staff member Mia Lang. This situation is being handled internally. Any Horizon employee who attempts to interfere further will be terminated." Linda staggered back like she'd been hit. Brian looked like he might throw up. Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. "Oh my God," Emma gasped. "I knew it. I freaking knew it." Michael laughed, both stunned and impressed. "Holy hell, that's the CEO." Nicole finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Marcus, I didn't know." Marcus turned his gaze toward her, calm, cold, and heavy. "That was the point. You didn't see me. You saw your version of me, and you decided. I didn't deserve to sit in a seat I paid for on a plane I partly own." He turned to Linda. "You can still fix this. You can make the right call. But you've got to make it now." Linda swallowed hard, then slowly stepped back. I'm not touching him." She lowered her hand from her radio. "I want no part of this mess." Passengers clapped. Not loud, but enough to shift the weight of the room. Daniel stood frozen. Nicole in shock. Brian leaning against the galley wall, like he was sinking. Marcus lifted his phone again. "Rachel, tell the board. We'll be proceeding with crew terminations before takeoff. Replacement crew should be ready at the gate in 10. Rachel replied. "Confirmed," Nicole whispered. "Please, Marcus, this was a mistake." "No," Marcus replied, cool and final. "This was a pattern. And now that pattern ends, the cabin didn't erupt. It didn't need to. It was quiet, charged, settled. The fight was over. Now came the consequences." Marcus Carter stood in the aisle of Horizon Airlines Flight 227 like he had just taken back the reins of a runaway train. His voice steady, his posture calm, but his presence now undeniable. "Let's make this official," he said, loud enough for everyone in the first-class cabin to hear, "My name is Marcus Carter. I'm the CEO of Horizon Airlines and a 25% shareholder of this company. What just happened on this aircraft is not only a violation of our code of conduct, it's a direct insult to every value we claim to uphold." A collective gasp rippled through the cabin, followed by a stunned, reverent silence. Nicole staggered back, as if slapped her hand covering her mouth. Brian's arms dropped to his sides, the smug grin, long gone, replaced with a blank stare, like his brain had blue-screened. Captain Daniel Pierce looked like someone had ripped his name off his pilot badge. "Wait," Daniel said, finally speaking, voice cracking. "You're Marcus Carter." "The same," Marcus replied flatly. "And unless you want security escorting you off this aircraft in front of a growing crowd of recording passengers, I suggest you cooperate." Linda, who had been shifting uncomfortably since Marcus dropped the truth, didn't say a word. She simply took a step back from the aisle and crossed her arms. "I'm not stopping this," she muttered. "I'm done." Emma covered her mouth in disbelief, her phone still rolling. "Oh my God. I knew something was off." "He was too calm, too confident," Michael said. "You ever seen somebody walk into a lion's den with that much patience? That was a boss move. Literally." Marcus turned toward his AirPods again. "Rachel, where are we with the board?" Rachel responded in real time, her voice playing clearly on speaker. "James, Sarah, and David are all in agreement. Terminations approved emergency protocol. 17A is in effect. You have full authority to proceed." "Marcus?" Nicole dropped into the jump seat, eyes wide, chest rising and falling like she'd just run a mile. "Please, I didn't know who you were." Marcus tilted his head, not unkind, but completely unimpressed. "That's the problem. You don't treat people with respect unless you think they're somebody. That's not how this airline runs." "Not anymore," Brian tried to chime in, hands open pleading. "Look, man, it wasn't personal." "Stop talking," Marcus said, without turning. "You had multiple chances to check the system. You mocked my card. You laughed at my name. You stood by while Nicole tore up a valid boarding pass and fabricated a seating record. That's not just bias. That's corruption." He turned to Captain Daniel, last, locking eyes. "And you, the highest authority on this plane, backed it all, without question, without proof. You overrode policy to satisfy a VIP couple because you assumed someone like me couldn't possibly belong here." Daniel looked down. "I made a judgment call." "No," Marcus corrected. "You made a biased call, and now you're grounded." Rachel's voice came through again. "Replacement crew arriving at gate B14 in 7 minutes. Ground manager has been informed. Please proceed with escort." Marcus stepped back slightly, giving Nicole, Brian, and Daniel space to exit. "You are all relieved of duty permanently. You'll be escorted off this aircraft immediately. You are not to return to Horizon Airlines property unless contacted by legal." Nicole looked like she might faint. "You can't just," Rachel, Marcus said. "Please, confirm their employee IDs are flagged." Rachel responded. "Confirmed. Terminated system updated." Brian exhaled sharply and muttered, "Damn, Daniel." Still pale, stood stiffly. "Captain's log will reflect full incident." "Don't worry," Marcus said. "So will mine, and mine carries more weight." A few scattered claps broke out in the cabin, then a few more, and before long, a round of applause rose up. Not the thunderous kind, but a steady, heartfelt rhythm from passengers who had seen enough and were ready to exhale. Emma smiled, and whispered, "That's justice," Michael added. "That's leadership." As the terminated crew members slowly began gathering their things, escorted down the aisle by two newly arrived gate managers, Marcus turned to Linda. "You had a choice, and you hesitated, but you didn't push it too far." Linda nodded slowly, almost like she wasn't sure she deserved his mercy. "I got caught up in it. I'm not proud." "You'll be retrained," Marcus said. "You'll be assigned to a different base for a while. You get one shot to prove you belong on this team." Linda didn't cry, but her eyes watered. "Thank you, sir." Maya stood quietly, off to the side, still gripping her phone, unsure what to do now. Marcus walked over to her and extended his hand. "You're getting promoted, effective immediately. Horizon doesn't need more bodies. We need integrity. And you've shown more courage in one flight than most. See, in a whole career." Mia's eyes widened, stunned. "Seriously?" "Seriously," he said with a nod. "We'll get you a badge and wings today." More clapping. Some passengers stood. One even called out. "Finally, someone who gives a damn," Rachel chimed in once more. "Board has confirmed full support for your decisions. Crew retraining and policy audits begin immediately. David Lee will oversee compliance. Compensation is being issued to affected passengers." Marcus gave a small, tired smile. "Thanks, Rachel. Keep me updated." Then turning to the passengers, he raised his voice gently. "I want to thank all of you for your patience for recording for speaking up. This flight will be delayed, but it will fly, and the people on board will be treated with the dignity they deserve." Emma wiped her eyes. "You've changed this airline tonight." Michael grinned. "This is going to be in every news cycle by tomorrow." Marcus shrugged. "Let it be. Sometimes the truth needs airtime." A few rows down, an elderly couple gave Marcus a quiet nod. Another woman said, "My son's been through this. Thank you for not backing down." Marcus looked around and said, "No one should have to look like money to be treated like a person." And with that, he took his seat 2A, where he belonged from the beginning. This time, no one questioned it. No one challenged it. No one dared. 10 minutes later, the air in the terminal outside Gate B14 felt just as tense as the cabin had been. Except now, the fired crew stood under fluorescent airport lights, stripped of their titles, holding their carry-ons like civilians. Marcus Carter stepped off the plane briefly, flanked by two board-authorized security officers, and Rachel on a live call through his AirPods. Nicole stood, rigid mascara streaking beneath her eyes, whispering again and again that she hadn't known that it was just a misunderstanding. "You knew what you were doing," Marcus said, his voice even, but laced with finality. "You didn't need to know who I was. All you had to know was that I was a human being who paid for a seat and showed valid ID." Brian stood beside her, arms crossed, no more jokes left in him, just a blank stare and a sagging posture. "You're done," Marcus continued. "Your employee. Records have been closed. You'll receive no severance. Your access is revoked." Rachel added in his ear, "Confirmed. Systems updated. They're locked out." Then came Captain Daniel Pierce, once the highest authority on the aircraft, now no more than a man in uniform, who had forgotten that leadership begins with listening. "I served 23 years, he muttered. "Then you should have known better." Marcus replied sharply, "And that makes this even worse." Security officers motioned them toward the terminal exit. Nicole looked back, hollow. Brian didn't. Daniel didn't either. Marcus didn't flinch. As they disappeared into the crowd, Marcus turned back toward the gate area where Linda Walsh stood by the wall, her eyes heavy but clear. She stepped forward cautiously, unsure whether to speak. "You gave me a choice," she said softly, "and I almost blew it." Marcus didn't interrupt. He let her feel the weight of her words. "I didn't pull him out, but I didn't stand up either, and that's going to sit with me for a long time." Marcus gave a small nod. "We've all stood on the wrong side of something. What matters is what we do next," Linda straightened. "I'll do better. I want to learn." "Then you'll start retraining next week," he said. "You'll report to a different base, and you'll shadow Mia Lang." Linda blinked, surprised. "Mia?" Marcus smiled. "She just got promoted." Back at the gate, Mia stood by the door in disbelief. Badge freshly issued, cheeks flushed as fellow crew members congratulated her. A manager handed her official wings. She stared down at them like they might disappear if she blinked. Marcus approached her and held out his hand. "You kept your head down when they told you to stay quiet, but you spoke anyway. You trusted what was right." "That takes courage, she stammered. "I couldn't watch it happen." "Not again." Marcus nodded. "And now you'll help lead change then." Rachel's voice returned in his ear. "Marcus, we've got something. Brian just admitted in his exit interview that this isn't the first time," said Nicole Daniel. "And he covered up at least 3 prior complaints, all buried by altering logs." Marcus's jaw tensed. "We're 2 in Los Angeles, 1 in Phoenix, all minority passengers, all assigned first class, records tampered to downgrade or remove them." "This is bigger than bias," Marcus muttered. "This is systematic deception." Rachel continued. "David Lee already ordered a full audit, starting today. Sarah's putting out a public statement. James wants to brief the DOJ by morning." Marcus turned toward the window, watching planes pull in and out on the tarmac, each one carrying people who'd trust they'd be treated fairly, no matter what they wore or where they came from. "Then let's clean house," he said. "From the top down." He walked back toward the gate, where passengers now deboarded temporarily during the crew switch waited patiently, many of them still shaken. Some applauded softly as he approached. One woman stood and said, "You didn't have to come yourself, but you did." Another added, "You could have let PR handle it, but you stood in it." Marcus gave a humble nod. That's what leadership is. Not hiding behind statements, but showing up in the hard moments. Mia stood beside him. A wings pinned, Linda off to the side, silently observing. Rachel reported, "New crew is briefed and boarding flight can resume in 15 minutes." Marcus looked around one last time. Make sure every passenger affected today receives a direct apology, full refund, and lifetime platinum status. "No exceptions on it," Rachel replied. "Already processing in Mia," he added. "Set her up with mentorship under our DEI lead." "She's going far." Mia's eyes went wide again. Seriously, Marcus said with a smile. "This company needs more of you." Then he turned to Linda. "You'll be shadowing her. Learn from the voice you tried to ignore." Linda nodded. "I will." Rachel chimed in once more. Marcus trending update number Horizon. Shock just crossed 75,000 views. Media's asking for a statement. "Let them watch," he said. "We're not going viral. We're going accountable." He stepped back into the jet bridge, ready to reboard, not just the plane, but a new era for the airline he helped build, not through press releases or social media spin, but through action, consequences, and redemption, all before takeoff. The wheels of Flight 227 finally lifted off the Chicago runway at 8:12 p. Nearly 2 hours behind schedule, but for the 134 true passengers on board, not a single complaint was heard. In fact, the cabin was strangely calm, as if everyone knew they were part of something bigger than a delayed departure, something that would be talked about long after the seatbelt sign turned off. Marcus Carter sat quietly in seat 2A, this time unchallenged, his seatmate nodding to him respectfully but not saying much, not because he didn't want to, but because he understood that some moments deserve quiet. Outside the window, city lights faded into clouds. Inside the cabin, the new crew moved with grace and professionalism. Already briefed on what had occurred, Mia Lang now wore her full wings pinned above her heart, and though she still looked slightly overwhelmed, she moved with a sense of purpose, offering drinks and checking on each guest like it was a personal mission. Marcus watched her with quiet pride, knowing her story would echo through training sessions for years to come. Across the aisle, Emma and Michael were still glued to their phones. Emma leaned toward him, whispering, "You've changed more than just this flight," Michael added. "Your name's everywhere. Videos hit 1 million views." Marcus smiled faintly, but didn't respond. It was never about going viral. It was about being visible. Not as a CEO, not as a shareholder, but as a human being who wanted to be treated fairly. He looked out the window again, his thoughts drifting. Not to the headlines that were surely exploding, not to the press statements that Rachel was undoubtedly fielding, but to the quiet resistance that bloomed in that cabin when a few strangers decided to stand up instead of stand by. That was the real win. In the front galley, Linda Walsh leaned against the wall, deep in thought. She hadn't spoken much since reboarding, but when Mia passed by, Linda quietly said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Mia smiled gently. "We've all got things to unlearn." Nearby, a couple who had witnessed the entire ordeal tapped Marcus on the shoulder. "We just wanted to say thank you," the woman said. "My nephew went through something like this last year. No one listened. You made it count." Marcus nodded, humbled. "Tell him things are changing," the man added. "Because of you." Marcus shook his head. Because people finally stopped letting silence speak for them. A chime sounded overhead. The pilot, the new one, came on the intercom, his voice measured and respectful. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Reyes. We are now cruising at 32. Cruising for it. Thank you for your patience today on behalf of the new crew and Horizon Airlines. We appreciate your trust, and we thank Mr. Carter for personally restoring that trust." A wave of soft clapping filled the cabin. Not thunderous, not performative, just real. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, exhaling slowly. This wasn't just about one flight. It was about years of being second-guessed, overlooked, and told to prove himself 3 times over. It was about the job offer he never got at 25. Because of optics. It was about the boy from the south side of Chicago who once sat in the back of the plane and dreamed of owning the whole fleet. Now, here he was, not just a passenger, but the architect of reform. Rachel's voice chimed gently through his AirPods again. "All board directives are in motion. Public statement scheduled for the morning. Audits underway. Legal is preparing ethics reviews for every base." Marcus nodded to no one in particular. "Good," he whispered. "Let it start now," Rachel added. "Media wants your quote." Marcus paused, then without hesitation replied, "Tell them I didn't come to make noise. I came to make change." A few rows back, someone murmured, "This flight should be in a movie." Another said, "Nah, it should be policy." The hashtags kept climbing, but Marcus tuned them out. He looked to Mia, to Linda, to the passengers who stood with him, and thought, this is what legacy feels like. Not a plaque, not a press release, but a culture reset born midair. A few months from now, new policy would be rolled out across Horizon's 48 bases, zero tolerance for discrimination, mandatory bias. response training, and direct reporting channels to the board. Mia would be named regional training lead. Linda would become her co-lead after completing full retraining. And Marcus, he would quietly ensure that every cabin at 3,000 feet became a place where no one had to justify their right to be there. The clouds outside thinned, revealing a soft stretch of stars above the flight path. Somewhere below, cities blinked like quiet witnesses. And inside, 2A, Marcus Carter sat still watching the sky, not chasing justice anymore, but flying with